Right, well, good evening. I'm Simon Lovesey, the founder of Restart Sailing and Sail Racer, and joined by my colleague John Emmett. I think you're in Southampton today, didn't you say that?
Yeah, no, it's really good to be here. It's been a pretty busy time, so just trying to record the
Yeah,
show and get the constant news out there for
yeah,
people. So still keeping to the 2 week time slot, even though it's getting
so,
a bit more difficult now.
yeah. I think we're on show 34, aren't we? Amazingly.
Yeah, and we're rattling through the classes and all different types of sailing because we all are sailors.
Yes, and still following our three stages. I think that the right-hand stage is struggling a bit in some areas, which we'll come on to, but in the main, we're sort of now well over to the right, aren't we, in terms of
Yeah, and I think things are pretty much going in the right direction. We can cover that in the next few slides just to give a bit of clarity.
yeah. So it's really, I think we're saying learn to live with and adapt to the COVID situation. I think even the government's using that phrase now, aren't they? So
Are they? Must have copied us. But,
must be listening to these shows, aren't they? So looking at some of the numbers, John. Then.
yeah, I just wanted to be clear that although it looks like we're in the UK going into another wave, if we look at the next slide, which is the more important one, the number of bad outcomes is actually very small, and that's the key thing. If we look at the daily deaths, and that's also people who get the bad long COVID, etc. All these and hospitalizations are all down. Now, deaths obviously follows a bit of a lag, maybe around a month from initially being picked up as a new case. But you can see that the number of daily deaths has flatlined. It looks like it's pretty much going to continue to do so. And there's people dying, more people dying from other diseases and things than COVID now. And as more people get double vaccinated, that's only going to increase. So just, to look at the big picture, although the new infections is rising very sharply and will continue to do so, luckily at the moment, the deaths seem to be very few in number.
Yeah, well, I think that's the encouraging thing. Although the infections are going up dramatically, the actual as you say that the deaths and other sort of consequences is well below other infections and other diseases, isn't it?
Well, we have that with flu. Every year, there's thousands and thousands of infections, but fortunately, the number of fatalities is much smaller than it was for COVID initially, and it just seems COVID's going towards that model now, as people have two or possibly in the near future three vaccinations. So on with the show, but I think it's a good news.
Yeah. And the Facebook group's still active, and I think we're now more looking into our phrase of resetting now, aren't we? In terms of really exploring the ways of how sailing can progress from this, isn't it?
Yeah, and all the different aspects of sailing.
Yeah, and I think if you look at some of the numbers, sailing's having a boom time at the moment, isn't it? So I think
And people are very keen to get back on the water, that's for sure.
yeah. And the challenge will be, I think, now as we open up, that people don't drift off in literally doing other things, and still keep in with sailing and their love for sailing. And that's going to be our challenge, isn't it? Right. So, quick chunter through. I think we're sort of now really at step 4, aren't we? I think
Yes, getting very close.
step 4.5. I think, aren't we? Is it sort of where we are? And I think it's August now, isn't it? That's sort of they're talking about really complete sort of abandonment of all restrictions.
Yeah, just get that number of people with double vaccinations right up. I think that's the key thing there. So
Yes, and I think the strategy here seems to be using the summer as really, a good time to go for it, isn't it? In terms of
it's easier to social distance when you're outside than inside, and August is about as good as it gets in the UK, I always think.
yeah. So and obviously the REA are sort of keeping on top of these things and turning it into sailing speak, and looking good, I think. So lots of organised sailing happening. I think we saw the Around the Island race at the weekend, which I think people have worked out was probably the biggest mass participation event in the country.
Yeah, I mean, it must be approximately 10,000 sailors.
Well, 1,200 boats now. I think conservatively they say 5,000 because not all boats have 10 people on them, do they? Some sort of smallish boats, but with things like the Great North Run and the marathon, all those big events not really happening at the moment, are they? So someone's done the back of the envelope calculation. Sailing could be the biggest participation event this year. Interesting how they prove that. But shows you how good sailing is in terms of that social distancing that other sports perhaps can't enjoy, is it? Right. So unfortunately, still seeing events cancelled. This is one sort of quite popular with some of the younger sailors. Mirror Week at Abersock, and unfortunately not going ahead. I think what we're seeing, John, is some sort of deviations, aren't we, in the home countries? And Wales has their own sort of issues. Have you come across that?
Yeah, I mean, it is sort of region by region, but I think we've got a much better summer than we had last summer. So I think it's generally positive. And some sailing clubs will have their own specific issues that will prevent events. It's normally about spacing.
Yes, or some local constraints and things like that. I think part of the issue is with some of the events. I mean, we're talking the Fireflies next, aren't we? Where some of these venues are being a bit overwhelmed by everyone staying at home or staying in the UK.
Yeah, I mean, we'll chat to them in the next show. But I think part of the thing is the boat park area was taken over by hospitality, who was desperate to get back to work. So So we have a public relations to think of for years to come. So better to lose one champion and stay friendly with the locals. But we'll talk about that with Fee. Today we have a different guest.
Yes, welcome, Lukas.
Thank you very much.
So this is you sailing a Waszp, is it?
Yeah, actually, my sailing club, Royal Danish Yacht Club, got 10 Wasps last year.
Okay.
They arrived right before the COVID outbreak, and then they were actually stuck in the airport for, I think, 2 months.
Oh no!
And then we finally got them, and then I think it's been the best that could have happened really during the COVID, because I was sent home from work. Yeah. And we were five to six guys sailing nearly every day.
Okay. So are these are club boats, are they?
Yeah, actually we leased them for a period of 1 year at a time.
Okay.
So that's a good way to get a new class started.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean we see that some in the UK, but perhaps not at that level in terms of foiling boats, John. I don't think that's
no. Club toppers.
Can't think of any clubs owning foiling boats, but that's and if you want to borrow them, is there a sort of an arrangement, or you just
so I think the club has 14. We have 14 boats now, and 4 of them are club boats that regular club members can borrow.
Yes, that's interesting. Yeah. So,
you do lots of different types of sailing. We've got some big boats going on in the background.
Yeah, actually I did J80 Nationals last week with an American crew as warm-up for the World Championship that's going on this week. So that was a pretty neat experience.
And that's happening in Denmark, is it?
Yeah, the Worlds is in Denmark this year.
So good to see a World Championship going ahead, I think, in this Barmies of the world. And how many boats are there?
Around 46, I think. Okay. Maybe 43.
Yeah.
And then one of the things we brought you on to talk specifically about was the eSailing, but we couldn't show any footage of that for obvious reasons. But can you tell us about your recent success? Well, actually, and also why we can't show it.
Yeah, so this year, the Olympics decided to host an Olympic virtual series in, I think it's five different sports games. And one of them was eSailing, where we were playing the virtual regatta inshore and offshore game. So we've had currently 3 different events in the 3 available Olympic classes in the game: Laser, 49er, and Acro 17. And I won the 49er event a couple of weeks back. So now I'm qualified for the Virtual Olympic Series final. That's, I think it's the 4th of August, where the winner qualifies directly to the World Championship final.
Perfect. I mean, I think eSailing has been a fantastic thing for people who couldn't actually get on the water, and people carried on doing it. How did you get involved? Was it exactly that reason?
Well, I've been involved for some time. I think I've been playing Virtual Regatta inshore for almost 3 years now.
Ah, so you were ahead of the game.
Yeah, so I was there kind of at the start. Actually, the first time I played it, it was only 2D, and now it's a 3D sailing game. But I also played the older games like Virtual Skipper 5. I think that was in 2007 at the America's Cup in Valencia.
So what actually got you into the eSailing?
Well,
You're
my
obviously an early adopter,
dad's
I'd say.
I've always been sailing. My dad's a professional sailor, and I've always liked computer games. So it was kind of natural to me to go that way. My cousin's actually a professional Counter-Strike player.
Wow. Okay.
So
Do you think professional gamers, or just do you think actually it would encourage them to go sailing, or how do you see it?
well, now I've been involved for some time, and we have seen that some of the players actually have never been on a boat. Their
Yeah, that's
first
what
introduction to sailing was through Virtual Regatta inshore, and I think it's quite a unique experience that we have people that haven't ever heard of sailing that are now fighting
Playing.
with Olympians in a sailing game.
Okay. And those are now actually going sailing. Is that what you're saying? Or?
Yeah, I don't remember. I think they might have gotten a go on a sailing boat. I know that I think it's a New Zealand or Australian guy. He actually managed to go in some of the evening regattas with one of the other fellow e-sailors. So I think it's also a giant network you get throughout the whole world of sailing.
Yeah.
Because there was, I think it was in motorsport where the champion, e-champion, then took on someone in a real car, didn't he, or something, and did quite well. And learned.
Yeah, I know that the motorsport Gran Turismo, they've had some academy teams where, in the end, 2 of them get
a real
professional contract or real contract at a car racing team.
Yes.
So maybe we could have the same in the e-sailing in the future.
Yes. Be interesting to see how it translates completely from someone starting on the keyboard or whatever.
Well, I did notice that the good sailors were generally good at the game from the get-go, and then like anything else, it's time on the water, or I don't know what you would say, time on the keyboard.
Yeah, but actually, you know Bart Lambrix, who's going to the Olympics in the 49er? He's one of the best e-sailors as well. And then we have Joan Cardona from Spain, who's going to the Olympics in the fin dinghy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he's the current world champion in e-sailing. So I think the level is really high. And I don't think, well, it's an opportunity you wouldn't get in the real world, racing these high-level real sailers head to head.
Well, you have to be a pretty big guy to race, Joe.
Yeah, exactly.
So any sort of specific tips then, Lukas, in terms of the e-sailing?
Well, I think it's like real sailing. It's time in the boat, time in the game.
Yeah.
Getting used to the rules. Last year, when all the lockdown started, we saw a lot of new players, and I actually created a thing called Team Race League. I think we're now at around 1,000 members, and where we just do team racing against each other, which is a fantastic way to learn the mechanics and the rules of the game.
So that's what one-on-one is it? Or?
Yeah, that's like 3-on-3 or 4-on-4, 2-on-2, and then we also do match racing, but the rules are not really set up for match racing really. Mostly fleet racing.
Team racing. I enjoyed the team racing probably more than the individual racing. We actually had, for example, these are people who've been on the show before, but we had scorpions versus larks and things like that, classes versus class, and that was quite good fun with a bit of a Zoom going on in the background so team members could talk to each other. But yeah, I enjoyed it.
And also this year, I actually signed a contract with a esports organization. So we have we can call it semi-professional e-sailing team with five guys, and there's also a team from France and Italy that are also sponsored by an esports organization. So we're kind of getting there to some sort of high-level esport.
Yeah. So can you earn a living off it then? Is that how you're getting to?
Not yet.
Okay, but do you see that coming as
Well,
other sports
I think
have done?
potentially, it could. I don't know if it's going to be this game or there's going to be a second game that's going to help develop the eSailing scene.
Because other sports, people are earning a living, aren't they? I think.
Yeah, but I think most of the games where you really can earn a living, or the first-person shooters, or a bit more fantasy, not really simulation games.
Right.
Good to know. Well, thanks ever so much for your time. It's really good to connect. We've had, I think I'm right in saying, you're our first non-British guest, so that's been really good as well. We should have reached out earlier, but we always wait for people to come to us.
Yeah. Well, hopefully right. Okay. So moving on, I think.
So back to the proper wet stuff. Just did a little diagram about going down the waves. It's been one of the things I noticed a lot jumping back into synchro-handers, things like lasers, arrows, etc. Is that that's the part that takes a little while to get back into when you've had a long time out of the boat. And the idea is that you get to the bottom mark as quickly as you can. You need to be looking at sort of heading up or sailing by the lead, get the boat hot, increase the boat speed, and just trying to overtake or go through the waves when you have the opportunity. And it depends. In light winds, obviously you just try and minimize the distance. In marginal surfing and planing, there's huge differences in speed, and then you can get right to the upper wind range where you can actually jump and overtake waves in this sort of slow single-handed boat. And I think the way I think about it is you're just trying to maximize your time going downhill and minimize your time going uphill. So that means that you're looking at picking the best route through the waves. So it's not only steering accurately for where you are, but planning ahead to catch the best rides. So hopefully this little diagram will hope a few people at home.
Right. So looking ahead into end of July now, isn't it?
Yeah, so really looking forward to the Firefly class. They had a bit of an up and down year with their nationals, a fantastic boat, and just to hear what's going on for them. So really looking forward to that one, and hope you can all join us.
Yeah, so that will be in what, two weeks' time, and it's 22nd of July.
Perfect.
Right. Well, thanks very much.